The Nurburgring 24 hours is not a Formula One event. No grid girls, no champagne podiums, no drive to survive cameras. Just camping chairs, barbecue smoke, and fans knee-deep in mud at 2 in the morning watching headlights disappear into the Eiffel fog. Max Verstappen spent 21 hours leading this race, pulled a double overtake on the Döttinger Straight that had the entire paddock on its feet, and then, with 3 hours left, a driveshaft failure ripped the rear axle apart. 352,000 people watched it happen. Formula One pretended it didn't. Nürburgring Nordschleife, May 2026. 25.3 kilometers of forest road, 73 corners, 300 meters of elevation change per lap. No DRS zones, no energy deployment buttons, no delta time on a steering wheel screen telling a driver when to push and when to save. Just a car, a road through a forest, and whatever the driver can extract with their hands and their feet. This is the track Formula One no longer visits. And this weekend, it is the track the best driver in Formula One chose over everything else. Verstappen enters as the reigning 4-time world champion. In 2026, his day job involves a sport that is about to hand drivers a new set of regulations built around heavier electrical power, manual override energy deployment, and a harvesting system that turns racing into resource management. Verstappen has been publicly tearing those regulations apart for months. And here, at the Nürburgring, he is driving a Mercedes-AMG GT3 Evo, Red Bull branded, run by his own customer team, Verstappen Racing, with Winward Racing handling trackside operations. His co-drivers are Danny Juncadella, Jules Gounon, and Lucas Auer. No team radio from Milton Keynes, no strategy calls about tyre degradation windows, no engineer telling him which battery mode to select for the next stint. There is no appearance fee, no championship points. He is here because this is what racing feels like when you strip away everything. Formula One has spent the last decade adding. Juncadella qualifies the car 4th. Race day brings a track temperature of around 9 degrees with rain on the horizon. The green flag drops at 3 in the afternoon, and Verstappen takes the wheel after the opening hour. His first stint is pure chaos. Approaching Flansgarten, one of the Nordschleife's most unforgiving compression zones, the heavily fueled Mercedes lifts both front wheels off the tarmac and clips the barrier. On most weekends, that is a retirement. Verstappen catches the car, stays on the throttle, and within 3 laps he is setting the fastest sectors of anyone on track. Then comes the moment the paddock will talk about for the rest of the weekend. The Döttinger Straight, nearly 3 kilometers of road cutting flat out through dense forest, and Verstappen threads a double overtake around the number 67 Ford Mustang and the number 34 Aston Martin Vantage. Both cars at full speed, 3 wide on a road with no runoff. He clears them both before the braking zone. In Formula One, an overtake like that would involve a DRS activation zone, an energy deployment advantage, and a team engineer confirming the battery state. At the Nürburgring, it involves a driver deciding he is faster and proving it with the throttle pedal. That is it. By the end of his first double stint, he has gained 3 positions and built a 23-second lead. The night stint is where this race becomes something else entirely. The Nordschleife in the dark is not a racetrack. It is a survival exercise, no permanent lighting. The only things separating tarmac from the Eiffel forest are a ribbon of reflective tape and whatever your headlights can reach. Cars disappear into the fog, reappear through tree lines, and run blind through elevation changes that would disorient you in broad daylight. Verstappen posts the fastest sector times of any car on the circuit, not fastest in class, fastest overall. His lap times are so consistent that the Mercedes pit wall stops calling strategy updates and just lets him drive. The gap to the sister number 80 Mercedes, crewed by Maro Engel, Luca Stolz, Fabian Schiller and Maxime Martin, stretches past 30 seconds. Nobody is catching the number 3 car. Nobody is close. This is the best driver in the world on the most demanding track in the world at 2 in the morning. No battery modes, no software managing his deployment, no artificial performance equalization. Just a 4-time world champion in a GT3 car pulling away from professional factory drivers through sheer ability, the kind of racing Formula One used to be. The marshals along the Nordschleife, many of them volunteers who have spent decades standing in the cold next to fire extinguishers, waving light sticks at cars passing at 200 kilometers per hour, are all talking about the same thing. The Red Bull Mercedes is on another level. And in the campgrounds between the trees, fans huddled around fire pits with radios and timing apps are tracking one car. Not a team, not a constructor, a driver. That is the difference. At a Formula One race, people support teams and debate strategy. At the Nürburgring, they are watching a human being fight a road. But Verstappen's team isn't done yet, not even close. He hands the car off, cycles through driver changes, and when the sun comes up over the Eiffel on Sunday morning, the number 3 Mercedes still leads. 21 hours in, 3 to go. Juncadella is back in the cockpit for the run to the finish. The car is comfortable, the gap is healthy, and then an anti-lock braking sensor warning flashes on the dashboard. Within 2 laps, there are vibrations through the rear. Juncadella radios in. Something is wrong with the right rear. He nurses the Mercedes back to pit lane, and the crew finds the damage immediately. The drive shaft has failed. The entire rear axle is destroyed. Mercedes-AMG Customer Racing Chief Stefan Wendell confirms the damage is catastrophic. The rebuild takes nearly 4 hours. By the time Juncadella takes the car back out for 2 symbolic laps, the race is long over. Official classification: 38th overall, 20th in the SP9 class, 21 hours of the most dominant GT3 performance of the season, erased by a single mechanical failure. Verstappen keeps it short after the race. A bitter pill to swallow, he calls it. The team was perfect. The car was not. The sister number 80 Mercedes inherits the lead and takes the overall victory. Mercedes-AMG's first Nürburgring 24 hours win in 10 years. The number 84 Red Bull Team ABT Lamborghini Huracan finishes second after an 86-second post-race penalty. The Walkenhorst Aston Martin Vantage completes the podium. Elsewhere in the field, former Formula 1 driver Timo Glock is disqualified mid-race and stripped of his Nordschleife driving permit for ignoring a slow zone. A slow zone on the Nordschleife is not a suggestion. Cars have been destroyed in those sections. Glock, a man with over 100 Grand Prix starts, loses everything in an instant. The 24 hours does not care about your resume. It does not care about your brand. It only cares about whether you respected the track. That too is a contrast worth noting. What comes next is the part that still doesn't make sense, because the real story of this weekend was never about where Verstappen finished. It was about who showed up to watch and what they were actually watching. 352,000 people attended the Nürburgring 24 hours across race week. That is an all-time record. It is also the first time in the event's 50-plus year history that weekend passes completely sold out. The previous year, this same event drew 280,000. The 72,000-person jump is almost entirely attributable to one driver. Race winner Maro Engel credits Verstappen directly. He put this race on the world motorsport map, Engel says. But here is the part Formula 1 should be paying attention to. Those 352,000 people were not watching battery management. They were not watching a driver ask his engineer which override mode to select. They were not watching cars slow down mid-straight to harvest energy. They were watching GT3 cars on equal rubber, with no DRS, no energy gimmicks, and no artificial performance tools, racing through a forest on driver skill alone. The atmosphere across the Eiffel is nothing like a modern Grand Prix. Fans camp in the woods along the Nordschleife for 3 days. They build fire pits in clearings between the trees. They stand on embankments in the rain to watch cars they can only identify by headlight color scream past at 250 kilometers per hour. No corporate hospitality, no paddock club, no €500 day pass. Just people who came for the racing and got exactly what they wanted. 352,000 people voted with their feet, and they voted for the kind of racing Formula 1 is actively moving away from. This is the detail that barely made the headlines. The Nürburgring 24 hours streams live on YouTube. Free, global, multi-language commentary. Anyone in the world can watch every hour of the race from their couch. Unless they live in the United States or Canada. North American fans who opened the YouTube stream on race morning hit a geo-block. No feed, no workaround. The entire broadcast locked behind a subscription to Racer Plus, a paid motorsport streaming service most casual fans have never encountered. 352,000 people in Germany watching for free, and fans in the largest English-speaking motorsport market on Earth were asked to pay. Shopify founder Toby Lutke posted on X, asking why on earth the Nürburgring 24 hours was geo-blocked in North America. The post pulled over 5,000 likes by Sunday evening. Fans replied saying they would have had the race on all day if it had been on YouTube. Instead, they watched nothing. That is not Formula 1's fault. F1 holds no rights to this event. The geo-block is a commercial deal between the Nürburgring's operating company and Racer Media. But the irony writes itself. Formula 1 has spent a decade chasing the North American market. Drive to Survive, Las Vegas, Miami, the entire operation reoriented toward American dollars. And when a 4-time F1 world champion races in front of 352,000 fans on the most famous circuit in motorsport history, American fans cannot even watch it. Nobody is in charge of fixing that. Enter Stefano Domenicali, chief executive of Formula One, the man who decides where the calendar goes, what the product looks like, and what the sport becomes. In the 48 hours following the Nürburgring weekend, no Formula One official, no FIA representative, and no active F1 team principal issued a public statement about the 352,000 figure. Nobody acknowledged Verstappen's near victory. The entire F1 apparatus, which generates press releases about fan engagement initiatives on a weekly basis, went quiet. You would think someone would have said something. Nobody did. The closest thing to a response came from Domenicali, a full month before the race. When asked about Verstappen's growing criticism, Domenicali offered a saying. In Italy, he said, people believe the grass of the neighbour is always greener. That line is worth sitting with for a second. The best driver in the sport publicly says he has more fun racing outside of Formula One, and the chief executive's response is that Verstappen is basically just looking over the fence. 352,000 people were on the other side of that fence. It looked pretty green. Germany has not hosted a Grand Prix in 6 years. The last one was the 2020 Eifel Grand Prix at this exact circuit. Lewis Hamilton won it, his 91st career victory, tying Michael Schumacher's record at the track that made Schumacher a legend. The last race, actually called the German Grand Prix, was at Hockenheim in 2019. Verstappen won that one in the rain. The reason Germany is gone is structural. The Nürburgring is privately operated, no state tourism budget, no sovereign wealth fund. Formula One charges promoters in the range of 25 to 40 million euros per year for the right to host. The Nürburgring's own spokesperson, Alexander Gerhardt, has been clear. No one denies Formula One its right to its business model, he told GP Blog. That model only works where tourism budgets or state-affiliated companies are involved. The Nürburgring is organized differently. It is not feasible for a private company in this form. Domenicali's response. If the German market doesn't see a return as a priority, we have to accept it and look ahead. We're not desperate. We have many requests from all over the world. And this is the thread that ties this entire weekend into a single argument. Verstappen is not hiding what he thinks about modern Formula One. He has called the 2026 regulations anti-racing. He compared the new hybrid power system to Formula E on steroids. And in the quote that has followed him through every press conference since the season started, he described the new cars in 3 words. It's playing Mario Kart. This is not racing. The 2026 regulations introduce a fundamentally different kind of Formula One. Heavier reliance on electrical power, a manual activation system that gives drivers a push-button override boost, an energy harvesting system that rewards conservation over aggression. In practice, this means cars lifting off the throttle mid-straight to recharge. Overtakes get determined by who managed their battery better, not who braked later. A sport built on the raw spectacle of speed is increasingly becoming an exercise in software management with a racing skin on top. Verstappen sees this as a betrayal, and the Nürburgring weekend makes his case for him. At the Nürburgring, he spent 21 hours doing what racing is supposed to be: overtaking on skill, braking on instinct, driving through rain and fog and darkness on a road that punishes every tenth of a second you get wrong. No override button gave him that double overtake on the Döttinger Höhe. No energy mode built his 30-second lead during the night stint. Just a driver and a car and a track that demands everything. In Shanghai, weeks before the race, he told media he gets to race the Nordschleife now, that he hopes to do Spa, maybe Le Mans. He called these plans positive distractions. The reigning world champion is describing racing outside of Formula One as a positive distraction from Formula One. That is not a PR problem, that is a product problem. ESPN reports Verstappen's Red Bull contract contains an escape clause specifically tied to the 2026 regulations. The activation window runs from August through October. If Red Bull's performance at Spa and Monza suggests another year without a championship challenge, Verstappen has a legal mechanism to walk away. He is not the only driver who has noticed. During a Pirelli tyre test at the Nürburgring's GP circuit in April, the first time current F1 machinery had run in Germany since 2020, both George Russell and Oscar Piastri publicly called for a German Grand Prix return. Current F1 drivers are telling the sport to go back to Germany. The sport is not listening. The Nürburgring weekend exposes 3 fractures in Formula One's current model. All 3 are getting wider. The first is the calendar. 22 races in 2026, down from 24 after the Bahrain and Saudi Arabian rounds were cancelled. The European leg includes no German venue. The calendar is gaining Las Vegas, Miami and Madrid. It is losing Imola and, after this season, Zandvoort. The direction is clear. State-funded venues over historic European circuits. The second is access. A GT3 race streamed free on YouTube to the entire world. Formula One behind national pay television deals and an F1 TV Pro subscription. The blackout was not F1's doing, but it mirrors the exact model F1 runs everywhere, every weekend. More money for less access. The third, and the one that should keep Domenicali awake at night, is the product. 352,000 people did not show up at the Nürburgring for battery management. They showed up for racing. Unfiltered, dangerous, beautiful, skill-defined racing. The kind where a driver threads a double overtake at 300 km/h on instinct, not because a screen told him he had enough energy stored. Formula One is building its future around the opposite of what those 352,000 people came to see. The 2026 cars are heavier than ever, the electrical component is stronger than ever. And the driver's role is increasingly about managing systems rather than managing a car. When Verstappen says it feels like Mario Kart, he is not being dramatic. He is describing a sport where the button you press matters more than the line you take through a corner. And its biggest star agrees with the crowd. Verstappen has already confirmed he is coming back to the Nürburgring. When asked about 2027, his answer was immediate. "Sure," he said, "I will definitely try." He also mentioned Spa and Le Mans. The man who might walk away from Formula One entirely is filling his calendar with races that feel like racing used to feel. Every weekend he spends outside F1, at tracks F1 has abandoned, in front of crowds F1 cannot explain away. The contrast sharpens, and the question gets harder to avoid. If 352,000 people will show up to watch GT3 cars race through a forest for free, and Formula One cannot fill a calendar slot in the same country at any price, who exactly has the better product? The 2026 F1 season resumes in 2 weeks. Verstappen goes back to the Red Bull garage, back to the regulations he compares to a video game, back to a car fighting to keep pace with McLaren and Ferrari. The escape clause in his contract ticks quietly in the background, and somewhere in a boardroom at Formula One management, someone will eventually have to answer a question they have been avoiding for years. Are we still selling racing? Or are we selling something else and hoping nobody notices the difference? Domenicali said it himself. "We're not desperate. We have many requests from all over the world." 352,000 Germans just made a request of their own. Not for Formula One, not for a Grand Prix, not for battery modes or override buttons or energy harvesting displays, just for racing. The kind that doesn't need a paywall, a paddock club, or a steering wheel with 40 buttons to be worth watching. Verstappen, asked if he would return, didn't hesitate. "Sure," he said, "I will definitely try." He wasn't talking about Formula One. The Nürburgring 24 hours is not a Formula One event, and 352,000 people just proved that might be exactly why it works.